South Australian Liberal Senator Alex Antic joins us again. And Alex, we've got a couple of heavy topics. I mean, death is generally the theme, but these are serious topics that need further investigation.
Yeah, look, they are. And what we've done here is with the Children Born Alive bill, is taken a bill that was originally introduced to the Parliament, the last Parliament actually, by former Queensland MP George Christensen. And it was introduced, and of course it lapsed when the Parliament lapsed. But many people, I think, don't realise that in many parts of the country, many states of the country, we have issues where if an abortion fails, there is no positive obligation on the doctors to actually provide medical care. And in many instances, those children are just left to die. And people can't believe that. But that is true. And in fact, George did some research out of the Parliamentary Library here that showed that it's places like Queensland and other states, it's more prevalent than we realise. So we've honoured that bill, honoured the work that he did, myself, Matt Canavan, Senator Ralph Babbitt, and we have reintroduced it through the Senate, and it's off to a committee. It's going to have a report done with some submissions that are coming in July. So we're really looking forward to giving this terrible issue some air.
And it is a terrible issue and a terrible topic, but one that does deserve investigation because of the horrifying scenario you describe. In what way does the federal government or the Parliament have power to direct, I guess, what happens in state-run health agencies in this respect?
Yeah, well, there are some powers that attach to the Constitution through various human rights treaties. The External Affairs power is one of them. So those acts can be, we believe, can be amended to sort of to provide positive obligations through the Commonwealth laws to do that. So look, I mean, these are ultimately state issues for healthcare. You know, the abortion bills, the terrible termination of pregnancy bill that was brought through 2 or 3 years ago in South Australia, of course, is a state act, but there are levers that can be used at Commonwealth level to try and intervene, at least to put some positive pressure back on the medical profession to provide care.
And is this in a circumstance where you'd be looking for care to be provided, breathing apparatus or what have you for a child that is terminated in a late-term scenario, or is there an age threshold here in terms of gestation?
No, there's not. No, what it really does is quite rightly, I believe, say simply that any medical care, any positive obligation on a medical practitioner to provide care would apply equally to a child that had been the subject of a failed abortion, as it would to somebody that was struggling during an operation or had come into ER with in a car accident or something like that. So really, it's about putting the rights of the child as high, quite rightly, as high as any other member of society. People do want to sign up to a digital petition. I've got one running on my website, www.alexantic.com.au. There's a tag there under Take Action. We're trying to get as many signatures on there as we can so that I can present that to the government, and we would love to see this bill supported.
All right, well, we'll provide some information for the community at the end of this chat after we're finished about if people are distressed by what they're hearing, because we have got another topic to talk about that is a heavy one, but it's something you've raised in federal parliament recently about excess deaths. Give us a working definition of why you're talking about excess deaths in Australia.
Yeah, well, look, it's sort of come up in the last few years. We've seen in the last little period, certainly from 2001 onwards, a massive spike in excess deaths over the baseline average. That's a 5-year average.
Sorry, you said 2001 or 2021?
So what did I say? Sorry, 2021. Sorry, my brain sees things very differently as I'm talking sometimes. But no, look. So this is all about this issue that's arisen, and it's happened all over the Western world, and I would say happened in every country where there was an extensive COVID vaccine rollout as well, by the way, or many of them, where we've seen large increases in the excess death rate over that 5-year baseline. Now, in Australia, that got as high as 17.3%, and they do them in quarterly batches, so they are sort of diced up for 4 times a year, and it's sort of steadily hanging in there at around about the 16% margin at the moment. So what that represents in real terms is something in the order of 34 to 38,000 Australians extra over the top of the normal, let's say, the baseline average, the 5-year average, that are dying at the moment per annum, which is completely out of step. Now, it appears that broadly the mainstream media and the political class and the health bureaucracies don't seem to be interested in getting to the bottom of this. So I've been raising it here myself, as have many others, because this needs investigation. I mean, there are probably a range of issues that are contributing to it, but the thing that's really worrying for me is that we're seeing the sorts of things that we saw so tragically reported in the Australian, the front page of the Australian with Amy Sedgwick, the young woman that was tragically died after her second COVID injection. I'm concerned that what we are seeing is a very large reaction to a very large vaccine rollout. And we need to get to the bottom of that, because if that's the case, this can never be allowed to happen again.
Well, my mind goes back to when you say things like that, the request we've made of the Albanese government about whether we'll have a royal commission into the COVID rollout, or indeed just how Australia handled COVID. Indeed, New Zealand is having such a royal commission. Every time we ask, they say we're fighting the fifth wave or the sixth wave or the seventh wave of COVID. It's almost as predictable as the sunrise. And yet your Senate colleague, LNP Senator from Queensland, Gerard Rennick, he feels that maybe answers would be better pursued in the Senate. Are there some inquiries underway to get to the bottom of the things you're asking about?
Look, there's not, certainly at administrative level there may be, but I'm not aware of them. There's certainly not any inquiries underway. We do have, on that specific subject I should say, but we do have an inquiry coming up in relation to a bill that we have put up, myself, Matt Canavan and Gerard Rennick, which relates to the attempts to remove discrimination from the employment practices. That is, the bill which, the COVID-19 discrimination bill, it's an amendment to the Fair Work Act, which would require all employers to disregard someone's COVID vaccination status. We saw that all across the last 18 months, 2 years, where people were being denied their jobs because of this. So we're trying to do something to stamp that out. That has gone off to a committee hearing, and I think we'll probably hear some of these stories through there. But no, Gerard's right. This needs an absolutely unique, specific, bespoke Senate Select Committee, and I would say a Royal Commission as well. I mean, this is one of the big... You think about how many people we're talking about with those sorts of numbers per annum, 38,000 Australians. I mean, when you actually boil it down to that, this is a very, very large problem that is just simply not being addressed. And we've got to keep the pressure on to make sure that it does. Well,
we've seen from, I guess, federal Labor in particular, apologies and anniversaries of apologies to people that were harmed by government practices in the past. Are we going to be looking down the path of a national apology and even redress schemes for those that were affected by this program in future?
Look, I think it's very, very likely. And, many of us have been saying this for a long time, but this was never a good idea. It was experimental at the beginning, and we have to be clear about setting the parameters for the future. Now, starters, the vaccine needs to be withdrawn, in my view, but that is a separate issue. But in any event, we have to get to the bottom of what's happened here so that we don't do it again. It may well be. I mean, there have been some crises over the years with things like thalidomide and Vioxx and other such products. This has the capacity to dwarf those by a factor of about 1 million.
And when you just lastly on excess deaths, I did note that there was something in the Financial Review, I think late last week, indicating that looking at Sweden, who were ridiculed early on about taking a less lockdown, less Daniel Andrews style approach to COVID, they've ended up with a lower excess death figure than Australia.
Yeah, that's right. And we all remember what it was like at the time. There was all sorts of howling that the Swedish government were negligent in what they were doing, and it appears that it has not worked out that way at all. This is the problem. We have to be clear about where we're getting our advice from. My concern is that we were too lockstep with the WHO's approach. We had our own pandemic plan, which we didn't use. And these mistakes just can't happen again. There's a process for everything in this building. There's a WHS handbook for turning doorknobs in this building. We are dealing with serious numbers and serious deaths.
Thanks again, Alex Antic, South Australian Senator. Always good to have a chat.
Thanks, Ricky. Great to be with you.
And for anyone who finds those conversations distressing and wants to reach out for help or support, Lifeline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on 13 11 14, or they have an SMS service 0477 13 11 14. The pregnancy loss helpline is SANDS, which is 1300 308 307. Mental health support also available thanks to Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36.